Firecracker's death looked predictable, killed by Homelander, the man she sacrificed everything for. But the real significance isn't her end, it's what she left behind. Homelander might be the main villain of the boys, but Firecracker is the legacy. Because after all, Homelander can fall. But what will happen to his followers? The hate she fed, the division she fueled, the paranoia she weaponized, all of that survives him. Firecracker didn't just support the regime, she built the culture that allowed it to exist. That's why she might be one of the most realistic, most frightening characters the show has ever written. This is the story of how a humiliated pageant girl became the voice of a movement, and why her influence is far more dangerous than the man she died for. We first meet Firecracker at convention, screaming conspiracies and misinformation with total confidence. And then there are her powers. Well, safe to say they're not exactly going to set the world on fire. Her introduction feels like a joke, a bit of political satire that the boys love to lean into. But our biggest clue that she would be a bigger player than what we realise was that Sage was there to recruit her. Why? Because Firecracker gives them something they're starving for.
Purpose.
Sage sees that immediately. She understands that Firecracker might not be physically powerful, but her influence, her ability to mobilise resentment, fear and identity is far more valuable. She knew that with the right resources, Firecracker's following could become a critical part of the Vault machine. But Sage also realised something else, and that was that Firecracker's desperate need for approval makes her incredibly easy to control. She wants validation so badly that she'll fall in line without question. Firecracker's pageant girl history could easily be mistaken as a throwaway detail, there to give us a slightly different perspective on Starlight's past. But actually, it's key in understanding how Firecracker built her power. If you think about what Firecracker needed to be able to do to perform successfully in pageants, she needed to perform, read a room, and say exactly what people wanted to hear. She grew up being judged on purity, obedience, and likability, all of the ingredients of a future populist. And for a while, she was doing well. Until Starlight, of course. To Annie, the rumour that she spread was silly, forgettable tactic to boost her own chances. She barely remembers it, but the fact that she used it at all suggests she saw Firecracker as a real competition, and maybe in another life their paths could have been very different. Firecracker relied on these pageants for money, reputation and stability. That rumour didn't just cost her her trophy for the cabinet, it cost her her entire life trajectory, and it followed her everywhere. She couldn't escape it. Every time she saw Starlight on TV, she wasn't seeing a hero, she was seeing the girl that ruined her. She was constantly reminded of what Starlight had gained from the pageant scene and a life that Firecracker could have had. In Firecracker's story, Starlight is the villain. That humiliation became her origin story, the rage that she would turn into fuel.
And I'm declaring hunting season on Starlighters.
Firecracker understood something crucial. She wasn't the only one who felt angry, overlooked or left behind. She knew there were people out there living in a system that felt broken, watching others flourish while every day felt like a struggle. And she knew exactly how to speak to them. She told them they weren't to blame, she told them someone else was. She gave them a target, a narrative, and most importantly a sense of belonging. Now it is important to say this clearly. Lots of people struggle and don't fall into this kind of politics. Firecracker wasn't appealing to everyone. She was appealing to a very specific demographic.
Would you rather believe that she belonged to a community of warriors battling a secret evil, or that you're a lonely, inconsequential nobody that no one will ever remember?
And unlike legitimate media outlets, Firecracker had no constraints, no regulation, no accountability. She could say the most ridiculous statements on Truth Bomb and it wouldn't even be questioned. She was able to tap into an audience that the Vault PR machine wasn't able to touch. Once she joined the Seven and gained the fame that came with it and had access to all of Vault's resources, she built this platform to having millions of followers, millions of people that hung on her every word, not because she was right, but because she made them feel seen. And look, we all know that Firecracker wasn't the sharpest tool in the box. I mean, look how easily she believed Web Weaver was the leak. But even that moment is significant. It shows what happens when you're desperate for simple answers. When you don't analyse, you don't question, you just grab the first explanation that makes you feel useful. She needed to impress Homelander, so she needed a culprit fast. Accuracy didn't matter, approval did. Sage couldn't resist mocking her for it. And of course, we see it all the time. Sage was mocking her constantly. But it's worth remembering, Sage is the one who recruited her. Sage saw something in Firecracker that others didn't. And she was right to. When Homelander wanted to be seen as a god, we get a round table of experts trying to come up with the optimum strategy. But who actually comes up with the plan? Firecracker. She knew exactly what people would buy into because she lived her entire life in that mindset. She knew how to create that spin. And we'd seen it previously when the boys tried to blackmail her with footage of her with a minor. She admitted to that atrocity live on stage with cameras rolling and somehow turned it into a redemption arc. She framed it as divine intervention and the crowd cheered. Not only that, she redirected the outrage onto Starlight within seconds. It shows not just how devoted stoked her fans were. Not just how much they hated Starlight, but how she could work the audience with only seconds to plan. It shows how she was able to twist any moment into propaganda. The other key element of Firecracker was how much she was desperate for validation from Homelander. So much so that the moment she realised she had no chance of getting him in the bedroom, she came up with a new plan, risking her own health just to make him some milk. My god, this show is so messed up at times. But she understood exactly what he craved: unconditional love, maternal devotion, and absolute loyalty. Because now that Firecracker finally had a place on the big stage, she wasn't letting it go. She did everything Homelander asked of her, even as he constantly looked down on her. She became his mouthpiece, his biggest fan, the woman who could sell him to the public in a way Vought never could. She never stopped chasing his approval, and she never stopped trying to get his attention. I mean, are you telling me that she didn't think about showering after sleeping with Soldier Boy? She knew Homelander would be able to smell him on her, and maybe that was the point. She wanted Homelander to know that others had seen her as desirable, because in her own warped way, Firecracker loved Homelander. Now, of course, it didn't work out the way she planned, and it ended up backfiring with the pillow talk reveal. Does anyone wonder how much detail Soldier Boy gave Homelander, or did Homelander have to then go away and check hidden cameras for the full conversation? And if Soldier Boy did reveal it, then why? Personally, I think Soldier Boy saw exactly what Firecracker was capable of and wanted her out of the way. And if you want to know why I think we've been reading Soldier Boy all wrong, then be sure to subscribe because I have a video on that coming. For all of Firecracker's obsession with fame, the spotlight, and Homelander, the thing that she claimed to care the most about was her religion. Her entire persona was built around it, her fan base was built around it, her childhood was shaped by it. Faith wasn't just a branding, it was her foundation. And at the centre of that foundation was the church she grew up in, and the pastor she saw as a father figure. He was there for her when she was young, when she needed it. He believed in her long before she had a microphone. So when he came to her for help, desperate to save the church, it should have been the easiest decision in the world. And for a moment she hesitated, you could see the conflict flicker across her face, but it lasted about 5 minutes, because Firecracker's devotion had shifted, her faith wasn't in God anymore, it was in Homelander. That strange mix of fear, worship, and desperate need for his approval made her double down. She read out Vaught's script condemning the church and the pastor, knowing exactly what it would do to him. She destroyed the only real father figure she ever had to worship a man who would kill her shortly after. It feels unthinkable, but this is exactly how radicalization works. There are loads of psychological studies showing that people don't just start at the extreme, they slide into it, one small compromise at a time, until turning back feels impossible. Firecracker didn't wake up one day ready to betray her pastor. She took incremental steps deeper into Homelander's regime, justifying each one until she couldn't imagine a life outside of it. And yes, fear played a role. She's seen what Homelander could do. She wasn't the only one following orders out of terror, but honestly, I think she feared being ignored by him more than she feared being killed by him. Right up until the end, she hesitated but still obeyed. She chose him. And that is why her death was so different from A-Train's. A-Train realised following Homelander was much worse than being killed by him. Firecracker couldn't imagine a life without him. Her tragedy isn't just that she died for him, it's that she lived for him. Everyone expected Homelander to kill Firecracker. Well, everyone except Firecracker. And that inevitably is exactly the point. She gave him everything and he was never capable of giving anything back. So Firecracker would always be disposable to him. Even when she was useful, even when she was loyal, even when she was willing to destroy her own life for him, Homelander looked at her, didn't see complete devotion, and with no care for her, he killed without thinking twice. Firecracker's tragedy is brutally simple. Loyalty will not protect you from the monster you helped create. Yes, she's gone, but look around. The cracks in Homelander's regime are widening. The Seven might be turning against each other. But what about Vaught's America, where Firecracker's legacy remains? Her rhetoric fed polarization. Her narratives paved the way for people to be taken from their homes, separated from their families, and put into camps. She empowered the people who confuse free speech with hate speech, who claim they want freedom while dismantling democracy. And that's the part the show wants us to sit with. How does Vaught's America recover from Homelander? But more importantly, how does it recover from Firecracker? Homelander is terrifying because he kills people. Firecracker is terrifying because she makes people want him to. Firecracker was never terrifying because of her powers. She was terrifying because she didn't need any. Firecracker looks exaggerated, but she's frighteningly realistic. She represents the people who make enormous amounts of money peddling conspiracy theories and misinformation. People who build massive platforms by weaponizing anger, resentment, and the feeling of being wronged. She's a character who proves in The Boys that the most dangerous people aren't the ones with the biggest powers. They're the ones with the biggest audiences. Firecracker's gone, but the world she created is still burning. And maybe that's the real horror behind her story.